Let's look at another example, a very familiar miracle, the feeding of the 5,000. We can find this story in Matthew 14, verses 15 through 21. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. Now, let's go see if we can find the original story from where Matthew got these details. Let's look at 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 42 through 44. A man came from Baal Shalisha, bringing the man of God 20 loaves of barley bread baked from the first ripe grain, along with some heads of new grain. "Give it to the people to eat," Elisha said. "How can I set this before 100 men?" his servant asked. But Elisha answered, "Give it to the people to eat, for this is what the Lord says, they will eat and have some left over." Then he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of the Lord. Now, these two accounts seem suspiciously similar, but let's see if we can apply the criteria that we talked about earlier and see how they stack up. Well, obviously Matthew had a copy of the Septuagint Old Testament in his lap, so that's a foregone conclusion. When Matthew quotes from the Old Testament, his wording lines up exactly with the Septuagint version rather than the Hebrew version of the Old Testament. So Matthew not only had access to the Old Testament, he was actually using the Greek translation of the Old Testament. He had access to the previous story. Criteria number 2, density. How many details are present from the earlier story in the copy? Let's just examine those. A large group of people were gathered in a remote place. The people were without food. In Matthew, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish were used as food. In 2 Kings, 20 loaves of bread were used as food. Jesus told one of his disciples to feed the group. Elisha told his servant to feed the group. Jesus' disciple protested about the number of people compared to the amount of food. Elisha's servant protested about the number of people compared to the amount of food. In Matthew, the people all received some food and were filled. In 2 Kings, the people all received some food and were filled. After the meal, there was some food left over. An interesting point here is that Jesus' miracle was much more impressive because he fed many more people than Elisha did, but with less food. Elisha only fed 120 people with 20 loaves of bread, whereas Jesus fed 5,000 with only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The density number here is 7. 7 details from the original story are present in Matthew's copy. Also, all of the details are sequential. They are in the same order. In this case, criteria number 4 is not met. There is nothing particularly distinctive about the grammar that Matthew uses. But it is interesting to note that in both accounts, the prophet is commanding someone else to feed the group. Why would Jesus not just give the bread to the group after he blessed it? He gives it back to his disciples to feed the group. This is a clear indication of Matthew trying to adhere to the previous story. We can see now with a little bit more clarity that Matthew has definitely copied the Elisha feeding of the 120 and upped the ante to make Jesus feed more people in his feeding of the 5,000. Now, we've looked at 2 examples I want to give you another example you can try on your own. The story of Jesus raising the widow's son from the dead. If you'll look in Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 16, then go compare that with 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 7 through 24, and just go through the same motions that I've shown you on these first two examples. Write down the similarities between the two accounts. Number them. See if they're sequential. See if there's any special phrases that may have been brought over from the original story. Now let me leave you with another tidbit before I go. In Mark, Jesus' last words were supposedly, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That's found in Mark 15, verse 34. But if we roll back time a little bit and look in Psalms, if we go to the 22nd chapter, we see something very interesting. Verse 1, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Let's try this again with Jesus' last words in Luke. Luke chapter 23, verse 46. "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." We need only look a few chapters ahead in Psalms to find the original statement. Psalms 31, verse 5. "Into your hand I commit my spirit." There are tons of other examples of copying from the Old Testament to invent the life of Jesus. If you have time, see if you can find some of these on your own. Look especially at the crucifixion of Jesus. Most of the details surrounding his crucifixion can be found in Psalms 22 and Isaiah 53.